Walter gives life back to the uncles, and the uncles in turn give influence to Walter or guidance, rendering, right? Male rendering, right? The uncles become almost this two father figures for Walter, who's never had anything like that. I have like been doing such a big deep dive without even knowing that I've been doing this deep dive. And so then because Father's Day is coming up, I thought that it could be cool to talk about this. This deep dive, right? This deep dive that I've been doing, right? Um, has been at the hand of my husband, right? Because he's been watching some videos about people who talk about these movies and how great these movies are, right? So, for instance, we talked about Braveheart, um, about watching it, and then we finally did watch it, and I gotta say, it's so weird how these traditional men, I feel like, they're strong, they're motivated. These men inspire other men to do like the rightful manly thing to be doing. And so I'm looking at William Wallace, like Mel Gibson has a really bad Scottish accent. But the entirety of the story is freedom for Scotland. But the way that they end up going about it is super sad. I mean, I that's a movie I really recommend watching because this dude literally dies for this thing that he's trying so hard to believe in. And I thought it was such impeccable divine timing that that's what he was about. When the day before we watched this movie, we watched Secondhand Lions. So the premise of it is Walter of Secondhand Lions, is his mom is a single mother and she goes through, oh my god, dude, she lies. She literally abandons Walter so many times. That's what Walter makes it seem. That's what he insinuates, is that his mother will kind of abandon him, say through the summers or like whatever, so she can go off and do the things that she wants to do, to the point where she ends up creating different aliases for herself, and Walter knows every single one of them. He gets dropped off at his uncle's, his great uncle's house, farm, whatever. And she goes off so she could be a court recorder or like a whatever. She goes to school for that. That's what she says. And so he's living up with the uncles and he's like, oh, they got no television, they ain't got no, telephone, they got nothing out here, man. They just sit on the porch and do nothing. These two old farts. Well, he kind of has enough when other family members visit because supposedly the uncles have millions stashed because they were gone and they disappeared for so long. And both Walter's mom kind of like nudges him to try and find that. And then other family members are trying to like weasel their way into the will. So that's just like the key drive of like the movie, is that they have millions, people want their millions, and yeah. So he has enough of these like super selfish family members that are coming over and like making fun of him and telling the uncles that they need to get rid of him because supposedly they can see right through Walter. They know that Walter is trying to get in the will. Walter is not trying to get in the will. He's like, I don't care. I don't want to be here. So he runs away, tries to call his mom at the school. The school says there is nobody under that name. And he's like, well, did you try blah, blah, blah? And the school is like, no. And so he just keeps vomiting out names. The lady is like, are you in trouble, son? And so he hangs up and he's just sitting there, defeat, because his mom lied to him again. That's what that says. That whole scene says, is that his mom has once again lied to him. And the uncles find him, and the uncles realize that like this boy needs some bro time. His mama's making him a sissy. And so when I first heard that, like, that's kind of where this is going, I was kind of like, I don't like that. But then when I actually started to like watch the movie for what it was, I was kind of like, oh, I get it. I finally get it. So, anyways, to make a long story short, Walter gets inspired and he gets motivated because he is listening to the stories of Uncle Hub when Hub was away. Because I said the uncles had like disappeared for like 40 some years. And so Walter's finally getting to hear those stories from the other uncle. But the other uncle, he's like, dude, like this isn't my story to tell. Like I only know so much and I can only be telling you so much before you're going to have to go ask Hub yourself. Walter's like, but like when the hell do I ask him? How do I ask him? On two separate occasions throughout the movie, the lady, Jasmine, his woman, Hub's woman, gets brought up, and Hub, like, is immediately like, I don't talk about that. I don't want to talk about that. And goes inside. And so it again, it implies that, like, this is a touchy subject. And if you know men are not going to talk about those touchy subjects, not those, like, tender subjects that are emotional scars for them, right? Because men don't cry. That's not what Uncle Hub says. So Uncle Hub has these like sleepwalking dreams, and he's fighting, and so Walter gets to see that, and then he gets scared by the other uncle, and the other uncle continues the story. The next day, they're trying to go and get like feed for the lion. I forgot to tell you, there's a lion that they take care of because Walter. This is so cute, okay? Because I'm kind of all over the place about it, but it's so cute, such a cute movie. Walter gives life back to the uncles, and the uncles in turn give influence to Walter or guidance, rendering, right? Male rendering, right? The uncles become almost this two father figures for Walter, who's never had anything like that, right? And so in doing that, the uncles get back into the hobbies that they used to have when they were younger, like hunting and gardening and fishing and like all of these awesome hobbies that a lot of men really relish and kind of relax in, or like they almost use it as things to fill up their cup, to fill up that inner manly cup of theirs, that bro time, like I said. And so Walter gives that back to them. So they buy a fucking secondhand lion who's a female. They keep calling it a male, and it's a female. Walter figures that out. And they're like, okay, well, because she's sick, right? She shows up sick and she's just not in the mood to hunt. She's not in the mood to be hunted. And the uncles are like, okay, well, Walter, fix her up. And when she's back on track, we're going to hunt her and we're going to mount her on whatever. And she kind of does, because they end up growing this big field of corn. And she runs in that corn because it's like the closest thing to the jungle she'll ever have, right? And I really love it when movies kind of like play on itself. It's like the movie will introduce plots, I guess. Cool plots, not only to keep you interested, but also so that way it can continue to balance out the story. I hate when it doesn't, when they just introduce just like shock factor, and it's just that. It's just shock factor, right? This is not secondhand. That's not that. So Walter names the lion Jasmine after Hub's woman. That's what the Hub's woman's name was the Jasmine, And Hub is like, no, I don't like it. Meh. You like his old man, like, "Ugh." And he goes inside. And so then there's more expedition of the story where you get to hear like the background back history. I don't know. When they're trying to get the feed for the lion because they can't just feed the lion whatever, so they get her like this actual like Purina chow for the lion. I think it's actually called lion chow. Uncles go into town, and then like because of that, then like Hub being trying to like hold on to every bit of his youth, kind of overworks himself trying to load up the chow, and that lands him in the hospital. And it's so funny because it's like Hub really kind of reminds me of my dad to a degree in this regard. Like overworks himself because he's trying to be like youthful, and then ends up in the hospital. And now he's reminded, like, put back in the place of like, you're not. That's not you. You are this old man. Why can't you get that? Which is sad. I think that's like a leading cause to midlife crisis. So, anyways, Hub gets out of the hospital, and like the family members that we saw earlier in the movie try to go visit him to like suck up to Hub, suck the Hub. And they hear, "Oh my god, where's Uncle Hub?" The nurse is like, "Oh, he's gone." And they're like, "Gone? Gone where?" I'm like, "Oh my god. Where's the body? Can we see the body?" And the nurse is like, "No, like he checked himself out. He's still very much alive." And so the family's like disappointed because it's like, oh, no more inheritance, right? Dang nabbit, right? And Hub gets out of the hospital and he's like, I need a steak. I need some meat in my system because hospital don't give you meat. So they go to this like little diner, like kind of like Piggly Wiggly style, and like they get themselves a beer. Walter gets a soda, and it's a pulled pork sandwich. I love pulled pork sandwich. Man, that's so good. And so, in the process of them like sitting down to eat, these punks come inside and they just start harassing. And so I go and I turn to my husband and I'm like, in what world would anybody do that? Would some young kid come up to an elderly man and drink that man's beer while insulting him? Like, I would never do that personally, but okay. So, of course, Hub has to teach these boys a lesson. And that's exactly what he does. He literally beats their ass single handedly. This says something about his character. And this says something about the man that Hub is and is trying to tell these boys also how to be, right? So he beats their ass and then he takes them home back to the farm. So he rides their cool sports car, right? While talking to them and trying to give them a lesson, part of the lesson, right? Before they got there, the family that was trying to get the inheritance also uh, beats them back there, thinking that Hub went home immediately. No, he went to go get pulled pork sandwich. And in doing so, the kids of the family come in contact with the lion, Jazzy, and yeah, that's where we go from there. So now, like all of the guys, everybody like suits up and they grab a gun to go find the lion. And then Walter gets snatched up by the lion because she's like in play mode. Anyways, they don't shoot her. Whatever. Okay, fast forward. And the uncles invite the punk boys to stay for dinner. And the boys are like, "Well, what are we gonna eat?" And uh the other uncle, he's like, "Meat, meat, 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 and more meat." So they feed him the meat. And at the end of it, like, basically in a nutshell, this is what happens. Uncle Hub beats the shit out of these boys, right? Knocks them down a notch. Okay. Then he feeds them out of courtesy and teaches them a thing or two. He has a big long talk. It's actually called the about to be a man speech, or what it means to be a man speech that Hub gives to these teenagers. And we don't quite get to hear it, and so neither does Walter. And Walter's like, "Well, what's going on?" And so the other uncle, he explains, and then Walter's like, "Oh, I want him to give me that speech one day." And then the uncle brother is like, "Oh yeah, he totally will. Yeah, of course he will. Like, if anybody is more deserving of it, it's you." So later that night, Walter confronts the uncle during the sleepwalking thing, which is where I've been trying to get at. And I've already explained that Walter has been lied to so many times by his mom that he has said that he just doesn't know what to believe in anymore. He tells this to Hub. Hub is like, "Well, shit, dude, believe in whatever the fuck you want to believe. Anything that you think is worth believing in." Right? And I think the reason why Walter says this is because he doesn't know if the stories about Uncle Hub are actually true or if they are kind of like this fictional fairy tale. And that's how they're being told. I mean, that's how it seems, is that they are this like fictional fairy tale, but they're not. It was true. And Hub tells Walter, like, no, every bit of it was true. He's like, he says, I fought for the things that I believed in. He says, and I fought for love because I loved my woman. I've fought, I've killed, I've cried. He's like, I've done all of these things. And he's like, and every man needs to do those things. And I'm sitting there like, oh my God. Hub goes down the speech and he says that. He says that like every man needs to love one woman and love her good. And every man needs to fight in the things that he believes in. And that's what he tells Walter. Because Walter's like, you know, has no guidance, so he has nowhere to go. And so this is where Hub is giving him that guidance and telling him like, do it, dude. Like, be a man. Do it. Be a man. And this influences Walter so much that his mom comes back, and she comes back with her detective boyfriend. Bullshit. And the detective boyfriend is telling Walter that the uncles actually robbed a bank when they disappeared. They robbed the bank and they just hid out with all of the money. And this is how they've been able to pay for stuff, but that money isn't theirs. And Walter needs to tell the detective where that money is right now so he can return it back to the people who do rightfully own the money, right? Because it's not the uncles. And Walter's like, no, that's not true. That's not true. He says, why would, the uncles be lying to me about all of this whole story that they've been telling me about Jasmine, about uh the sheik, you know? And Walter's mom is like, what? What are you talking about? There's no sheik. And Walter's like, yeah, yeah, yeah. When they were in, the I don't know, in Africa. When they were in Africa, like they couldn't have stolen that money because they were in Africa. And his mom was like, oh shit, maybe. You can see that the wheels in her are turning because she just told another lie. She told another lie, and Walter spit back at her with the truth. And now she doesn't know what she believes. She was fully believing her lie because that was going to benefit her. But then Walter says this and she's just like, "Oh shit, maybe this conflicts my lie." And she doesn't say anything else. She just kind of stands there in shock like, and yeah, so then Walter shows the detective where the money is cuz Walter does know, and the detective kind of roughs up Walter And then the lion catches the detective roughing up Walter, and the lion protects her cub, Walter. A better mom than Walter's real mom, I will say. And that's how she dies. Um, she like gives out. Her body, that was it. That was the last, excitement of her life, and it was worth it, because she died protecting her cub. And so then after that, you know, the detective lives. He's like super bandaged, and Walter's mom's gonna take Walter home. And so she comes back and she's coming to collect Walter and like his luggage and stuff. And Hub tells the mom, like, you're not gonna let this man stay around Walter, are you? Because this man isn't good for him. And he's not good for you. And she's like, no, no, of course not. What kind of mother would I be if I did that? Like, I'm not gonna do that. I'm gonna drop him off in Las Vegas because that's where we're going through. So then Walter comes up to Hub to say a goodbye, and he's like, "Look, buddy, you gotta live long enough to give me that man speech, okay? You can't just keep being reckless and like trying to be young again. You need to stick around for me because I'm gonna need to hear the rest of the speech." And Hub is like, "All right, I respect that, dude. I really respect that." And you're right. Yeah. He's like, "Okay, all right." Oh my god, he tells Walter what a good boy he is, like all of the time, and I'm just like, oh my god. And Walter leaves. He leaves with his mom. But like midway through, he finds out that his mom isn't going to actually drop off the detective boyfriend. She just said that to get Hub off her back because she's still loving that D in detective. And it's so disgusting. Because it's like she knows he isn't even good for her or her son, but she doesn't care. I don't know. I don't know what her deal is because we never see much for characters, so like I don't even know. And so Walter's like, "Oh fuck this!" And literally jumps out of the car. His mom stops and she's like, "Well, what the hell, dude?" And he's like, "I can't stay with you. You're a bad mom. I gotta do what I believe is right, and I gotta fight what I believe in." And so she's just like, "Okay, um, okay." Dude, she doesn't give any second thought. She does not hesitate to like literally drive. No, she doesn't drive back. She just leaves her son. She doesn't care. She just does not care. And so Walter ends up staying with the uncles for the rest of his life, right? Then he graduates, and then the uncles are full on retirement, right? We never get to hear what the end of the speech was, but we could imagine. And it's just like it's a beautiful story. And I feel like this movie is such a beautiful movie and it's so underrated because it wasn't theatrically the best produced. I think it barely has a 3.2 on Letterbox. I think I haven't checked. But I really love this movie. And I think this movie is part of the like great representation of positive masculinity that I've seen in a while. Because I my peak positive masculinity will always be Aragorn. I will always go right back to Aragorn because when I think of positive masculinity, I think of honesty, loyalty, bravery. They are inspirational men. And when I say that they are inspirational men, I say that because whoever is standing with them in arms, they don't belittle them. They they push these different people of their potential. They inspire these people who are hesitant or you know um shy or even just kind of like wimpy to fight to their fullest potential and be at their best because they have it in them. For some reason, these good men will see it in these other men. And that's what Aragorn does. And that's what Uncle Hub does. Uncle Hub sees that these teenagers, they're just boys, but with a little nudge and a little push in the right direction, they have this passionate fire in them to go down the right road. And these characters are so rare. They're so rare nowadays that I feel like because of their rarity, it doesn't help also influence other people, other men, fathers enough. There's very few like um I'm gonna just say YouTubers that like regard, Aragorn, William Wallace from Braveheart as top notch manly characters. They are all really strong men. They are all strong minded men, right? The only difference that Uncle Hub has really between the two of them is he's old. He's an old guy. He's an old head, okay? And he misses his youth. That's it. But that's like an age thing. That's not really so much the fact that like that says anything about his character, right? So like if you watch Secondhand Lions, pretend you do, Uncle Hub is literally reliving his crazy, infamous past through his dreams. I don't ever hear anybody talk about Uncle Hub. Like John Lovell from Warrior Poet Society, he does regard Aragorn, I think, a few times as like good masculinity, and also William Wallace as like peak man. Like if you want to watch like male empowering movies, I guess. Yeah. Braveheart and Secondhand Lions is really good. Uncle Hub is very similar to William Wallace, but if William Wallace got the chance to grow old. Secondhand Lions was like a really beautiful story. I mean, you had Robert Duvall as Uncle Hub. I kept forgetting the other uncle's name. I think his name is Garth. Yeah, Uncle Garth. McCann. The last names are McCann, but it's like Robert Duvall as Hub. You had Michael Kite as Garth, and then Haley Joel Osment as Walter, among other people. I feel like Robert Duvall and Michael Caine play in very like blockbuster movies. This was not a blockbuster. I don't think the Secondhand Lions did very well at the box office. But who cares about the box office? The public loved it. The public loved it, you know. But I feel like the characters of Hub and Garth as uncles and as influences to Walter are really rare. I feel like that whole spiel of them like basically telling the mom that she needs to do better at the men that she's bringing around Walter um almost never gets talked about, in Hollywood. And that leads me to like the characters of William Wallace and Aragorn. um I think in small ways we do see characters like that, like Major Winters in Band of Brothers. That was such a great character, a great leader or like show of leadership, and that was based on real events, so it doesn't really count. But it's like we don't see those characters a whole lot anymore. Um, Again, like when you think of like really good masculinity, you think of those characters like Aragorn. I don't think people think about Mel Gibson a whole lot because he's Mel Gibson. I think these are like excellent examples of positive masculinity, and I really, really wish they were more common. I feel like the sad weak man trope is like super popular right now. Like You look at Gladiator 2, Joker, that also just came out like relatively, you know, recent. Um, I get that they're trying to like shed light on down on how masculinity can look like this sometimes, and how men can have this moment of kind of vulnerability and weakness. And to that, I think yes, I think yes you can, but that doesn't mean you should stay there. And I feel like that goes for anybody, any human being. You shouldn't really stay in this pit that you find yourself after hardship. It is so hot out here. This thought about these characters in these movies has been kind of marinating in my brain for like a good while. I couldn't just be satisfied with putting it on paper and also having endless conversations with my husband about it, because the more that I went down this deep dive of these movies and of these characters, the more that I felt almost bummed out because I love these characters a lot. I commend these characters and the type of dignity and qualities, the good qualities that they just have, I feel like should be present in everybody. So yeah, if you want to watch movies where you almost get pumped up and you witness like a wonderful story about really good characters, morally good characters, I suggest Secondhand Lions, Braveheart, um, Lord of the Rings, of course, the extended versions, and Band of Brothers. Band of Brothers is a TV show. It's on Netflix, and I think it's an HBO show. It's not quite a movie, but honestly, I binged watched it like so fast that it felt like a movie, like an 8-hour movie. Because I think there's like 9 or 10 episodes, and they're all like an hour long. So I am getting really overheated, and this is all I got to say about that. I really wanted to talk about Secondhand Lions because I like that movie. I've watched that movie since I was a kid, and I've really always enjoyed it. I enjoyed the fairy tale ness of it. I enjoyed the cool like adventure and like I love Uncle Hub. He seems like a really good uncle. But yeah, uh, these father figures are very important, and they're very important to the development of children. And I wish that they were more common, um, and they should be appreciated more when they are present. Yeah, I can't think of anything else to say. Bye!